Hey, if you're new to my channel, then consider liking and subscribing. It would really mean a lot to me, and honestly, it'd make my day. If you already did, thank you so much. Oh, and by the way, if you like listening to fan fiction, check out my other channel. The link's in the description. Once again by Double M7. Lady Toki grants Luffy one last chance to correct his mistakes. Luffy was sent 12 years into the past in order to relive his life. Though there was a catch, he retains his 19-year-old mind and body. How will he change the world? For the better. Adios.
Would you believe me if I said that every major power of the world was present on or around the island of Laugh-Tale that day? There was the side of good, I Am headed the world government, with his mysterious 5 elder stars. Of course, I Am had his dog in Cerberus, or Teach. Come now dog, the world needs to learn a lesson of fealty. I Am led the way as the vessel of Teach followed him aimlessly. Then the Cipher Pole division was present, from Aegis 0 to Cipher Pole 9, led by the mysterious but powerful agent Stussy. Would this be enough? Stussy revealed her true allegiance. Once posing as a member of the underground world, she was actually a Cipher Pole agent. She threw a microchip consisting of Barris, the universally accepted language of the underworld family. You have quite the nerve to show up here, said Dufeld, the underworld king of the loan sharks. Regardless, he plugged the chip in his reader and found that it contained a huge sum of berries. 500 billion to be exact. Another 500 billion will come once you do what we need from you, Stussy said, looking around the room of the underworld kingpins. He grazed over the seat of Morgan's, but the traitor was now with the Straw Hats. All right sweetheart, where do you want us? Replied Umir, loving the amount of berries he was about to earn. It was through money that the world government employed the underworld to their cause, with the likes of Dufeld, Drug Peklo, Gibberson, and Umit along with their many employees and murderers under their wings. Kong bridged the world government from its subdivision branch of the Marines where it is headed by the Fleet Admiral and the 6 Admirals. This will determine whether a renewal is on hand, or if his rule will persevere. Fleet Admiral Sengoku. I'm conflicted Kong, on one hand, he killed my best friend. Sengoku begun. On another this is my duty. Admiral Akainu, Admiral Aokiji, Admiral Kizaru, Admiral Fujitora, Admiral Ryukuyu and Admiral Zephyr. Absolute justice will prevail, or so I swear to my death, proclaimed Akainu. Yeah, Zephyr and Fujitora agreed on the ideology. So intense Admiral Red Dog. Joked Kizaru. HNN. Grunted Ryukuyu. With Aokiji being obviously quiet, pondering. Then a large group of powerful vice admirals below them, along with the many ranking officers within the group. Smoker, Suru, John Giant, Momonga, Dalmatian, to name a few. There were many more. But then the Marines had their warlords, the pirates of the government. Alvida, Foxy, Weevil, and Orlumbus are what remained of the former warlord system. With Kuma, Ace, and Law joining the enemy's cause. Oblivious to the Marines, they had a mole within, and that mole was Sword. Formerly found by the late Monkey D. Garp. Kuzan now heads the fighting force within the Marine organization. Their goal was to overthrow the world government, and maintain actual justice in the world, not the corrupt absolute justice that the propaganda wanted to push. On the other side of the war, there were the evil, or so they say. Monkey D. Luffy led the Straw Hat Grand Armada and their allies. Zoro, Nami, Usopp, Sanji, Chopper, Robin, Frankie, Brook, and Jinbei. Whitebeard, Kaido, Shanks, Katakuri, Shiki, Burndy, Bullet. Marco, King, Ben Beckman, Oven, Mahawk, Hancock, Crocodile, Kuma, Moria. Lucci, Yamato, Buggy, Arlong, Enel, Guild. Bonnie, Kid, Uruauge, Hawkins, Apu, Killer, X-Drake. Bartolomeo, Leo, Haruden, Cavendish, Sai and Idio. Rayleigh, Shaki, Tom, and Dr. Vegapunk were on the Holy Land, aboard Pluton to destroy the Red Line. Alabasta, Dressrosa, Atlantis, Fishman Island, Drum Island, Sorbet Kingdom, Hapo Kingdom, Elbaf, and so on. The Straw Hat Grand Armada were here to settle this blood feud, one that began with the lonely Uranus, creating two siblings which eventually rebelled against him, where his own creation turned against his twisted ideologies. But who knows who's good, who's evil, until the victor of the war is determined. For every one fighting being allied to Luffy, there were 10 working for IM. Alas, the war of the world is underway. Get a fucking doctor here. Oh my god, my arms. Please. No more. Screams of pain and agony rang throughout the air as two opposing forces came to head. On one side there were the Marines and the world government. On the other there were the pirates and Alliance fighting for the freedom of the world. One fighting for the deceptive ideology of true justice. The other fighting for the truth and freedom of the people. One was led by the tyrannical god, IM. The other, the liberator of the world, Luffy. One was the creator of the world, Uranus. The other his greatest creator, the inheritor of the will of D, Joy Boy. IM sat on the helm of his golden vessel, its structure made of the finest material. Around him were his stars. Once again Joy will challenge him, and once again Joy will fail. Though he felt something was off, for a moment he could swear that something was off. He then received a call from Mary Joie. "I am Sama, we failed you." Then emptiness, a ringing of destruction echoed in the other end of the call. Then a familiar voice echoed from a distant. "After this wretched land, we'll make our way around the planet. To destroy the Red Line." That voice could only belong to one being, his creation, it was Pluton. True to his word, Pluton led the way in destroying the Red Line. His island-destroying ship unleashed a beam of powerful energy, one that could not compare to the bastardized version that the world government had created. The beam of energy was so powerful that it blasted through the holy land of Mary Gaius all the way to the bottom of the sea, even hitting and destroying the old Fishman Island. The true purpose of the world-shattering monstrosity of a ship was now fully realized, to destroy the Red Line that divided the world and raised the traitorous celestial dragon into the heavens. Dr. Vegapunk sat on top of his creation, admiring the view below. Yes. While the celestial dragons fled for their lives, countless slaves were freed and placed on the deck of the ship by Rayleigh and Shaki. And the destruction of the Red Line was underway. Laugh Tale. "The Holy Land is gone," said Kong, speaking towards the 5 heavenly stars. When the entire forces of the world government were called, the entire forces showed up. It does not matter, another will arise once this war is complete. The man with a scar on the left side of his face and gray dreadlocks spoke up for the group. Little did they know, humanity was on the brink of a revolution, one led by Monkey D. Luffy. For the Straw Hat Captain had sent his forces forward, and a full-blown war was underway. "Get a fucking doctor here, oh my god, my arms. Please. No more. I'm here, little one, just keep breathing and don't think about the pain." Dr. Kureha held the hands of her patient as he was gasping for air. "Mama. Mama. Did I make you proud?" The young Alabastan warrior sook-bed to his end in the hands of the doctor. And Dr. Kureha could not do anything about it. She wallowed in sorrow for a moment before getting up, a cannonball nearly decapitating her. "Doctor, you must keep your cool, we are at war." The person who diverted the cannonball was Virgo of the infiltration unit. He had been going through the members of the Marines who were foolish enough to get in his way. The active goal of the Armada was to get through to the back line of the world government. It was there that Kong along with the 5 Elder Stars resided. Then of course, IM himself sat on his throne, watching everything transpire. Then hundreds of thousands of Marines stood in between, with the high-ranking officers all present for the final war. Dufeld, Drug Peklo, Gibberson, and Umit, the crime underworld kingpins, were faced with opponents of their own. Enel, King, Oven, and Magellan faced the crime lords. Even the admirals were there, and they were itching for a fight. All but Kuzan, who promised that they'd revealed their allegiance as soon as war broke out, and he kept. As soon as war broke out on both sides, Kuzan emitted cold air from his hands and created a bridge. "What the hell are you doing?" Zephyr was the first to notice, but Kuzan was off. Then other members of the Marines began to follow the sword commander and turned their blade from fighting the pirates to helping the pirates. "What the hell is going on?" Vice Admiral Smoker quickly encapsulated several Marines and tossed them overboard. "It's a fucking coup." Beside him, Captain Toshigi, Lieutenant Asuka, and Vice Captain Bell Mir revealed their true allegiance. They were then joined by ex-Drake, who assisted the other sword members. "What are you doing right now, Admiral?" Before Admiral Kuzan could get any further, Admiral Fujitora caught wind of the changing tides. Fixing what is broken. Kuzan's target was none other than the Elder Stars, and eventually I am for killing his mentor. "Not on my watch." The gravity user forced a downward slash, pulling a meteor from orbit into the Earth to where Kuzan stood. Collateral damage be damned. Though he knew this would not be enough to slow the Admiral, he did not account for an interference from a mere pirate. As his asteroid came racing down to the Earth, somebody jumped towards the falling rock, slashing it into 3 pieces, dicing it into smaller and smaller pieces until it was rubble. Isho looked on in admiration as the swordsman landed before him, with Kuzan moving on to his target. Isho was stopped by a fellow swordsman. A damned pirate. A pirate by the name of Roronoa Zoro. Now old man, don't go swinging your sword violently, you might break your back." And Zoro landed above the marine swordsman, crashing his 3 swords with the blade of the Admiral. Roronoa Zoro had jumped from ship to ship, taking aim at the marine admiral, and he wasn't alone in his pursuit, for right beside him, a blur of a certain blonde-haired chef appeared before another unsuspecting marine admiral. Admiral Kizaru suspected that the Straw Hats would combat him with someone like Katakuri or Enel, but instead, the prince of the Vinsmoke family emerged from their roster to challenge the light Logia. "I'll dance with you, Admiral," Sanji proclaimed, and even with light in his arsenal, the Admiral was surprised as Sanji was able to intercept his particle kick, with his own kick. Black-legged Sanji truly is a monster. Oh, Admiral Zephyr was now trading blows with Shanks himself, their fist destroying the very ship that they stood on. "You've become younger yet as dumb as ever, red-haired." Zephyr threw a haymaker which Shanks dodged. Their blows could cost continents to shift, but they had to hold back or the people within the ships would fall to their death in the deep blue. "And you're an old fart, Z," Shanks countered with an uppercut which Zephyr caught with his bare hand. On another ship, Admiral Akainu was surprised at his opposition, for his magma was much stronger than Ace's flame, and Sabo's foxfire. "You dare oppose me, you damn squirts." Admiral Akainu covered both arms in magma while Ace covered his right arm in red flames and Sabo covered his in orange with yellow flames. "Captain Big Bro Luffy specifically asked us to destroy you," said Sabo. "And we are happy to oblige," added Ace. Admiral Ryukugayu was next, with his opponent being the new wielder of the soul fruit, Nami. His vines reached for the floating weather manipulator but Nami aboard Zeus was too fast. "Eventually, girl, I will get a hold of you," Ryukugayu said with a smile. "Sure you will." With a wink, Nami sent a flaming thunderbolt right at the Admiral, and their battle was getting heated. With the Admirals occupied, Kong and Sengoku stood before 2 more figures who were troubled in their own rights. Kong stood face to face against Whitebeard, and Sengoku was against Kaido. "Did you imagine that we'll fight alongside one another again, Kaido? I am but a servant of my king. If it means working with you, then so be it," Kaido responded. Meanwhile, Kong and Sengoku removed their coats, arming themselves in armament hockey. It was time for war. Now the Elder Stars were another problem, the 5 being as mysterious as they are. Katakuri, Mihawk, Hancock, Arlong, and Crocodile were the 5 members of the Grand Armada to challenge the Elders. "So you are the puppeteer." Kuzan's ability was enough to stall the Elders and freeze them in their seats, allowing him to go to the throne room of the massive golden ship. It was there he found I Am, sitting on his iron throne. "I am, who I am," replied I Am unfazed. Kuzan tried to get the jump on him by launching an icicle spike, but the room suddenly became heavy, his icicle shattering. Though this wasn't the only thing that shattered, for Kuzan found out quickly how powerful this man was. No, he was no man, this was a god. For Kuzan found his right arm crushed within the grip of I Am, appearing beside him in less than a second. "Foolish of you to think you can contend against me, mortal." I Am then proceeded to rip the arm straight out of the body of Kuzan, forcing the former admiral to reel back in pain. Though no time to scream in agony, for he had to close the wound by freezing it, then he had to go all out, unleashing all of the attacks in his arsenal right at I Am. With one hand he was still able to manifest his trident-shaped icicle spears, a wave of cold air, and all he got. And what showed his effort? Absolutely nothing, as I am remained unmoving, not a single drop of blood was able to fall from the divine entity. All that for naught. Such a shame. And I am once again covered the distance, his hands extended out to pierce the heart of Kuzan. Strangely enough, Kuzan was still conscious as his heart was removed from his body. For a second he could utter a single sound, oh. Then there was nothing, as Kuzan collapsed backwards, lifeless as I am was quick to take his life. Disgusting, these humans. I am said, he was angered by their resilience, and so he unleashed his creatures which he used to torment the void century, his golem which killed the resistance that David gathered. From the very depth of the sea, a large trembling began, and suddenly, from deep into the earth's core, several hundreds of massive golem creatures emerged, causing humanity to once again experience the cleansing. Yet even with the hundreds of golems emerging, humanity will not surrender, not this time. For humanity had Luffy. The will of D lives on within the King of Pirates. For Luffy forced his way through the sea of marines. Then through the tightly guarded golden ship, trusting his allies to handle the enemies which stood against him. Then he finally reached the throne room, where the fallen, lifeless figure of Kuzan currently covered the hallway in blood, and I am. While he sat on his throne, observing every move that Luffy made. Welcome home my joy. I am opened his arm, expecting an embrace from his favorite star. I don't know who the fuck this joy is, but I'm Monkey D. Luffy, and I'm here to end you. Venom seeped through his voice. As Luffy was out to kill this being. So be it. And the War of the Heavens was underway. Would you believe me, I said the final war was here? Straw Hat Grand Fleet Intel Unit Captain, Lucci v. Seifel Pol Aegis Zero Lead Agent, Stussy. Their skills were well matched, with one dragging the other to a fist fight. In his blind range Lucci forgot his fundamentals. His advantage of being in awakened zone. For Stussy knew how to play with her prey. She knew how to drag the match along and force the opponent to situations that were in her advantage. Their final battlefield is the desolate tropical island of Laugh-Tale. Their field was enormous and yet Lucci felt confined, as if he was trapped within a cage. All these years of hunting me down, and you are about to come up short. How do you feel about this, Lucci? Stussy gave him a teasing smile, one that was both seductive and scary at the same time. The woman who murdered his parents in cold blood was finally before him and he could barely make her sweat. Shigen, Rokuogun, Soru, Geppo, Kami-e, Tekai, no matter which form of the sixth style, Stussy matched him perfectly. She was mocking him, which got on his nerves. Right where she wants him. Though what Stussy did not account for, was the sheer growth of the former Cypher Pole agent. She kept tabs of the former agent until he sailed with the Straw Hat Pirates, thinking he would eventually die out in the dangerous waters of the New World. She was very wrong on losing her mark, for Lucci has grown exponentially, not just in strength, but also in capabilities. Little did she know, he had mastered the 6 styles, but on top of that, she had gained experience from being around the strongest people in the world. As the dust cleared, Stussy was shocked to find that Lucci had covered the distance and wrapped his hands around her neck. He did not let up as he dragged her body on the ground and tossed her into the sky. That wasn't the end of it though, as Lucci launched himself after her. She covered herself in haki, but that was not enough as Lucci delivered a powerful Shigen directly to the belly of Stussy. This broke her guard enough and Lucci continued his onslaught, not letting up for even a second. Before he could finish her, he let her survive for only a moment longer. He wanted the satisfaction of an answer. "Why do you do it?" he asked as she stood over her unmoving body. All the bones in her body were fractured into so many pieces that it was a miracle that she was alive. The haki that emitted from Lucci's leopard hybrid form retracted, and he stood over the agent. "Ha!" She began to cough violently as her lungs were punctured. She then sat up using every ounce of her remaining strength to look at Lucci in the eyes. "I don't know who the fuck you are talking about. I killed so many people, I've become numb to it." With that, Lucci determined the judgment of Agent Stussy, and there was no other choice but death. He held both hands in front of him, with Stussy looking him directly in the eyes. He bloodied look emphasizing the evil that she'd done throughout her life. She accepted her judgment. Shigen. With his arms outstretched, the impact was enough to cave the chest cavity of the fallen agent. She coughed up her last breath before plopping down like a sack of potatoes, the light disappearing from her eyes. Lucci has obtained his vengeance, and now his purpose was fulfilled. Ah! He yelled at the top of his lungs as he fell on both knees, then falling flat on his face from exhaustion. If the fight lasted for another second, he probably would have died. Lucky he won when he did. Lucci wins. Straw Hat Grand Fleet Strategy Unit Magellan v. Deep Ocean Current, Umit. Magellan stood before Umit, aboard an iron ship which Umit uses for his trading business. "Warden, I have some business with you." Umit whipped out an anchor that he used as a weapon, with it being attached to a chain and a ball at the end. "Is that so?" Magellan let the poison drip from his body, no longer experiencing the side effect of his ability due to the medical advancement of the Straw Hat Grand Armada. "You tortured my package transporters." Umit unleashed his anchor, tossing it at the direction of Magellan. The former warden tried to melt the anchor only to be hit head-on by the anchor, causing blood to drip from his face. "What the?" Magellan took a moment to recover only to find Umit with a massive smile on his face. "Sea prism." Umit began to toss around the heavy anchor, swinging it as if it was lightweight. His smirk was annoying, and yet Magellan had no issue with the obvious disadvantage. "I have no problem with fighting without my abilities." Magellan will rely on his weapon, the warden blade he was given and impelled down. When Mugiwara retrieved him from certain death, he made sure to bring the sword with him. Now it was going to be put in good news. "Do you still know how to use that blade, Warden?" Suddenly Magellan appeared before Umit, slicing down and catching the master trader off guard. Lucky for him, he was able to bring his anchor up on time. "Answer enough for you?" With a menacing look in his eyes, Magellan had a slight smirk. For one, he didn't need his devil fruit. But that did not mean he wasn't going to use it. Magellan swung his sword diagonally, pushing back the anchor-wielding trader. "Eat shit, Warden." Umit used the other end of his anchor to swing the heavy ball on the back of Magellan's head. But Magellan caught the metal ball completely with one hand, despite the job of the sea stone being to weaken the fruit user. Though the warden had enough juice to catch the sea prism ball and toss it back at the face of Umit. Umit dodged it, but Magellan already had the higher ground, landing on top of his own blade and pushing down on the anchor which Umit held over his face. Magellan smirked, activating his fruit. As long as the anchor doesn't touch him, he's not completely nullified. Magellan had been exposed to the sea prism arena known as impelled down, so he knew how to handle it. Now that he held the anchor in front of him, Umit lost his footing in stopping the poison from reaching him, and Magellan let it drip on the illegal trader. "It burns." Magellan's poison continued to drip down on Umit. The illegal trader could not push off the heavy opposition. He could not block the poison raining down on him either. Magellan continued to push down, his sword, with his full weight and poison over the helpless Umit. Umit reflected on his life as the poison rained down on him. From a young man in the Grand Line, to a scrappy trader who figured out the sea. He grew an empire to which he garnered the interest of the underground world. Now he was pushing the merchandise, the product, and getting a cut of the Covenant underground money. He continued to claw until he was on the top, and finally, now that he was. Well, looks like his sins finally caught up to him. Many years of turning his back on his beliefs to be on top, and now to die by poison. It was a hell of a way to go. Eventually Umit collapsed, melting over the poison of Magellan. Magellan finally hopped away from the melted skeletal figure of the former Grand Trader known as Umit. To finalize his victory, Magellan grabbed the sea prism anchor and whipped it around, jumping in the air and finally landing the anchor through the core of the iron ship, sinking the ship that Umit worked so hard to create, finalizing his victory. Tisk, underground powerhouse my ass. With that, Magellan rejoined the war, helping his crewmates against the Marines. Magellan wins. Straw Hat Grand Fleet Cuisine Unit Captain Oven v. The Concealer, Gibberson. It was strange. At one point Oven faced off against Gibberson, aboard his own battleship. The next he was suddenly within a massive warehouse, one with endless crates with no end in sight. Charlotte Oven looked in front of him, noticing the suave warehouse manager directly on the end of another aisle of many shelves of crates. "You know, Squirt, I never pinned you for a follower. Your mother was a great woman who always led, and to see you under the same person who killed her." Gibberson was playing mind games. Uying. So Oven deciphered quickly that Gibberson was a devil fruit user, similar to Capone Beeg. Though Gibberson held Oven within his massive storage space of a body. Soko no mi model. Warehouse? Fuck you're smart, exclaimed Gibberson, grabbing his hair on the top of his head and laughing at the quick wits that were in the child of Big Mom. If it wasn't for the money, I wouldn't even want to thread this waters. So you were hired hitmen? Oven commented, meanwhile his eyes were traveling throughout the warehouse, trying to get a read of the area. The boss of the underworld doesn't move unless there is an undeniable offer on the table. For the amount that blonde-haired agent offered me, shit I would kill anyone. Gibberson was no idiot, noticing the movement of Oven's eyes. He then let him experience some of his abilities by crashing some heavy crates on top of Oven. Unfortunately, Oven simply melted the crates by contact, not fazed by the heavy product within the crate. That move was a distraction, as Gibberson disappeared within his warehouse. On the outside world, Gibberson simply sat behind a desk, with his legs stretched out over a desk. He simply whipped out a cigar and took a deep puff of the expensive stick. Though within his body, Oven had been fighting an endless army of Gibberson's hired muscles. Oven threw a punch here, kicked there, tossed some people to ward off another horde. These thugs were no joke as they were employees of the underground world. But Oven was much stronger than these nobodies, slicing and shoving them out of the way as Oven made his way around the massive warehouse looking for a way to get to Gibberson. But he didn't have to find him, he would just need to get out of this warehouse body of the Storage King. So Oven stopped running, and instead he activated his hottest form, turning into pure heat, one that was so hot that the weapon of the thugs melted if they got within his range. Just a matter of time before Gibberson had to no choice but to release him. Gibberson's body heated up until he could not handle it anymore, ejecting everything within his storage space. His warehouse of illegal products were ejected into the open sea, hitting allies and enemies alike. Though this was put to an end when Oven finally appeared before him, grabbing him by the throat and literally superheating him to death. Gibberson screamed in agony until there was no more sound left out of the underground emperor. Finally. Despite his strong front, Oven was truly exhausted from the onslaught. But the war just started, and sitting down was not an option. So he gathered himself, took a deep breath and got up. He joined the war once more. Oven wins. Straw Hat Grand Fleet Guerrilla Unit Captain NLV, the Godfather, Dufeld. How about I buy your services for 1 billion berry? Dufeld isn't called the Godfather for nothing. He buys everything with money, even people. Ironic how he was brought out of his comfortable throne to fight in a war for money. Goes to show how money talks, and the world government was ready to pay astronomical amounts to ensure their dominance. Dufeld's thinking was to make a quick buck, then return to his underground empire as soon as he'd done what he was paid to do. That's the only way you can rise in the world, money. Too bad Enel cares not for Dufeld, nor such trivial things such as currency. He valued loyalty. He values his true king, Luffy. Within seconds, Dufeld felt his body go through a billion-volt of lightning, and in an instant, the Godfather fell face first on the deck of his own ship. And with hardly lifting a finger, Enel made his way to another ship to assist his allies. Enel wins Straw Hat Grand Fleet Strategy Unit King v. Drug King, Drug Peklo. The final member of the Underground Emperor, Drug King Peklo, was splattered across a broken battleship. His scythe somewhere far away, and his body was bent in a way that it should not be. King stood over the broken-down monster, unleashing a wave of fury that scared his hired muscle. King wins. You sure made quick work of that, commented Law as he had to run back to get some of the injured to the medical tent. If Kaido himself, the strongest man I know, was subdued by Mugiwara, then he has my full support. With one final look at the Drug Emperor, King transformed into his hybrid form and joined the fight once again. The war was raging on into a huge debacle. Marines and pirates alike were dead set in achieving their goal. For the world government, absolute justice. For the pirates, Luffy was the king of pirates. Red-haired pirates Captain Emperor Shanks v Marine Admiral Zephyr. Both of his hands were bleeding, and Zephyr was face down on the ground. The hockey clash was intense. It was enough to cause those around them to pass out. But in the end, the Emperor was too much for the purple-haired admiral, and the results were final. He took a deep breath, and for a moment he surveyed the war before him. How was everyone else doing? He wondered. He then got up once more and rejoined the battle. Here we go. With a red streak, Shanks rejoins the war. Shanks wins. There was a story of a man and a woman. One from the heavens, one from the depth of hell. That was a bit of an overstatement for the man who came from Skypie, and the woman came from the care of Doflamingo, who could be argued as the devil himself. This is the story of Wiper and Baby 5, and how they became more than friends. He dragged himself along the journey to the Blue Sea. Once the Beercon god was defeated, he had to join his journey with undying resolve. Captain Luffy decided to protect him by dropping him off at the floating restaurant, where he spent many years developing into a young man, until he was ready to join the Grand Fleet. It was there he met her. Oh, how that day was one for the ages. He fell deeply in love with Baby 5. Baby 5, a girl who was thrown away by her own parents. She had craved for a purpose, to be someone's significant other. In another life, Baby 5 would fall madly in love with Sai of the Hapo Navy. But this was not the regular timeline for Baby 5 fell madly in love with the Skypie gorilla. It was like a match made for the heavens. For Baby 5 was any weapon imaginable, and Wiper is the expert in guerrilla warfare. So ever since meeting in the floating restaurant of Barati, ever since spending all those times together, she was his as he was hers. They have gone through countless missions together, never once failing. I need a. Wiper extended his arm as he called for his partner. On it, babe. Baby 5 knew what he wanted, immediately changing into a Gatling gun. That's my girl. With a cigar in his mouth, and a smile on his face, Wiper began to unload the bullets onto the wave of Marines that charged at him. This was a war, and casualty was to be expected. Watch out, called out Queen of the former Beast Pirates. He had become instant friends of the Straw Hat Grand Armada, and swiped his massive dinosaur head at a Rouge Marine that tried to blindside Wiper. Good-looking big guy, said Wiper with a thumbs up. No problem, friend. Queen's huge metallic neck was used by both Kid and Yurog to hitch a ride onto another ship. The duo were working together in taking down Marine crews. They hopped off as soon as they were over another Marine ship and joined Capone Beeg and Killer in taking down the ship. Here you go, fucker. Kid tossed a metal pole towards Yurog, who gladly accepted it and swung it around the entire ship. Duck. His swing was enough to destroy the upper part of the ship. Killer and Beeg duck as instructed while Kid hitched a ride on the metal pole to strike down the captain of the Marine ship. On to the next, called out Kid. Let's go, replied the trio. The giants of the Grand Armada were in a tight tangle with the giants of the Marines. John Giant was owning up to his reputation as he took down some of the prominent members of the Grand Armada. I feel sorry for you, brother. Haruden, the captain of the giant pirates, collided with John Giant as they wrestled each other for command. Shut your mouth, pirate. John wrestled Haruden for control. Each movement caused a tremor in the sea. Did you know that you and the other marine giants were traded like livestock by a lady known as Mother Carmel? What about Mother now? Down below, the two titanic giants battling. Cracker in his attack form fought side by side with Vista, Ohm, and Kabaji as they used their swordplay against the Marines. Raisin and Daz were joining Cavendish as the Marines were being pushed out of the way. They were clearing the way, for one of their own was testing his limits against one of the strongest that the Marine can offer. Straw Hat Grand Fleet Sword Unit Zoro v Marine Admiral, Fujitora, Isho. On his waist were 3 different swords as he had to make an adjustment to his set. Wado Ichimonji returned to his proper owner, Kuina, who is now fighting alongside the troops against the Marines. Shisui returned to the land of Wano, as Zoro returned it to its proper grave. Aim no Habakiri and Enma returned to Momonosuke and Hiyori as they are the rightful inheritors of the supreme grade blades. So then he was left with Sandai Kitetsu, the cursed blade that found him as a master. Nidai Kitetsu, its predecessor that was given to him by Tengayama Hitetsu for his involvement in ending the 2-decade-long strife of Wano. And then once the 2 swords came together, its first iteration manifested out of thin air, presenting itself to Zoro. The Shodai Kitetsu has recognized a new master, and now the 3 brother blades were reunited. I have never once wished ill upon my opponent, and yet you Straw Hats are getting in the way of true justice. Isho took a swing downward. The pressure of his gravity was enough to sink a person to the core of the earth, not Zoro, for he pushed up against the gravity of Isho and met him by slicing his blade at the Marine Admiral. The two exchanged strikes, with Isho exerting his gravity and Zoro pushing against the adversity. "I don't care about your stupid justice. All I care about is that the king reaches his goal." His blade on his right hand took a slice forward, aiming for the neck of Isho, though the admiral leaned back enough to miss being cut. But Zoro followed up by pushing with the sword in his mouth and pushing the admiral back and using his free arm to try to cut once more. Again Isho diverted the attack by using Zoro's momentum against him. The gravity user created some space between them, and slashed his sword diagonally 3 times while seemingly pulling something down the heavens with an invisible force. He then continued his parry with Zoro until the 3-sword user felt something strange from the sky. "Oh shit." Zoro then realized that Isho had brought down 3 giant meteors from space. "How will you take care of that boy?" Isho said with an angry look about him, though he would not let Zoro get enough space to stop the meteor. Lucky Zoro, he didn't have to, as Kuina, Sasaki, and Smoothie each jumped to the heavens and sliced down the meteor with their powerful abilities. What the? Isho was too shocked to give Zoro enough time to recover and go onto the offensive. Without the trouble of the meteor, Zoro is going all out. And by all out, Zoro opened his left eye, revealing the eye of Ashura. The swirl of purple aura surrounded him as devilish power surrounded him once more. Ashura. Zoro used the power of the devil to ensure his victory, disappearing within a blink of an eye behind Isho. He then sheathed his 2 blades in each hand and finally sheathed the blade in his mouth. Zoro then closed his left eye to suppress the demon energy of Ashura. "I see." Isho could not believe it, for he was outmatched. He then fell on both knees and finally on his face. Roronoa Zoro wins Straw Hat Grand Fleet Cuisine Unit Sanji v Marine Admiral, Kizaru, Borsalino. Stupid moss head. Sanji had been engaged in a duel with the light logia, but the light user was not gaining any advantage with the mortal man. Despite not having any devil fruit power, Vinsmoke Sanji was holding his own against Borsalino. Crazy enough, the light admiral was not quick enough to catch Sanji, even being light. Sanji was quick enough, with Haki in his legs to kick Borsalino to the sky. Then he followed up with a skywalk to keep kicking Borsalino higher and higher. The light user gritted his teeth as he was unable to recover or even attempt a counter-attack. Then finally, as Sanji decided it was high enough, Borsalino drifted for a moment in the sky. It was as if Borsalino feeling multiple ways. Though as he did previously, Sanji now came crashing down from the heavens, with his legs lit into flames. Like a meteor, he came crashing down through the core of Borsalino, launching him to the sea. Sure, Borsalino was a fruit user, and sure he will probably die in the sea. Sanji lit a cigarette and took a deep breath. Oh well. But instead of falling deep into the ocean, Borsalino was caught by Sentomaru, saved from his death. The light user was knocked out cold, but Sentomaru now had a grudge. Too bad he would be able to explore it as a radical beam hit him straight to the face, and it came from the Straw Hat's own, Cyborg Frankie. "All yours, Frankie." Sanji gave him a thumbs up before helping out the outnumbered pirates in engaging the fight against the world government. Frankie then retrieved his arm only to find Sentomaru with an angry look about him. He was pissed. Frankie did not care, for he unleashed his arsenal of weapons, raining down hell onto Sentomaru. Too bad for the Vice Admiral, he was done before the fight started. Smoke came out of his mouth as the white of his eyes were the only thing visible. And Sentomaru fell face first, defeated. Borsalino also out next to him. The big hitter of the Marines were going out one by one, but they still had the significant numbers over the pirates. Vinsmoke Sanji wins Straw Hat Grand Fleet Finance Unit Nami v Marine Admiral Ryukugayu. The vines chased after Nami as she zoomed around the Marine Admiral. For starters, she had been observing, with Prometheus burning any vines that got close and Zeus doing the flying to avoid the plant attacks. Green Bull remained still with his arms crossed, following Nami around the sky while using his body to follow her sporadic movement. His vegetation continued to follow her around in the sky. Well, that was until Nami took notice of the heavy vegetation surrounding them. It was even getting in the way of the Marines and other people fighting in the battle. Nami noticed a giant green pillar emerging from all the heavy vegetation. It seemed like he was making a tall route, but what for? She took a moment to remove her vision at the admiral only to find him mere inches from her own face. Boo! He then outstretched his hands to surround Nami with a massive amount of plants. Ryukugayu had used his giant plant as a traveling mechanism to get from one place to another quickly. And with Nami being close to his massive contraption, he was able to catch her. Too bad it was for naught. For Nami had unleashed a thunderous energy from the heaven at the plant admiral. And once his grip had loosened from the strike, Nami then followed up by enlarging Prometheus into a massive fireball. One that could rival the flame Emperor Ace makes. Perish. Nami then commanded the fireball to come crushing towards the plant user. And it swallowed him whole, eating up on the majority of the plant that he created. Monsters existed within the Straw Hat Pirates, enough so that the Marines were starting to lose, and lose big. Come now Zeus, we need to aid our friends. Nami commanded and the duo zoomed past the burning battlefield. The remains of the plant admiral sprawled eagle on the ground, unmoving. Nami wins. Straw Hat Grand Fleet Beast Unit Captain Kaido v World Government Fleet Commander Kong. Kong. Kaido was a dragon flying directly at the massive gorilla. Kaido. Kong had transformed into his mythical zone form, Model King Kong. The massive gorilla captured the head of Kaido, sending him several steps back. Kong swound down, knocking down the dragon to the ground. But Kaido recovered by unleashing a Boro breathe right into the face of the gorilla. This was going to be a battle of endurance. Good thing it did not have to go on any longer as Kaido stopped playing with Monkey. It was only a matter of time till the fleet commander fell into the iron mace of the beast. Kaido let out a mighty roar as his voice echoed throughout the battlefield, with the fleet commander falling into his might. Kaido wins. Straw Hat Grand Fleet Vanguard Unit Captain Whitebeard v Marine Fleet Admiral Sengoku. I mourn the loss of Garp as much as you do Sengoku. I should have realized it sooner. How I was merely a puppet to the grand scheme of things. Sengoku merely sat down, crossing his legs. At first he was angry, then he accepted his stupidity. On with it Newgate. I will not put up a fight. No Sengoku, you will not die such a pitiful way. Whitebeard slammed his Basento along the ground. Straw Hat Luffy will come out victorious against this so-called god, and he will bring freedom to the world. This being cut Garp's head off like it was nothing. He defeated Mugiwara in a single strike. What hope does he stand against such adversity? In what I learned from engaging in a war against him, never bet against Mugiwara. As Newgate determined that Sengoku had no fight in him, he jumped away from the fleet admiral and destroyed 2 ships with his powerful Quake Punch. Straw Hat Grand Fleet Portgas D. Ace and Revolutionary Army Vice Commander Sabo v Marine Admiral Akainu. Ace and Sabo combined their ability to push the admiral back. He got desperate and unleashed a rain of lava that ultimately was not enough to stop the fire user and the foxfire user. The finishing blow came into a combined punch from the 2 brothers, both meeting the chest of the admiral. Akainu fell into the arms of both brothers, a gaping hole on his chest. The magma was not enough to melt the flames of the 2 brothers. Ironically, Akainu died the same way he killed Ace in the original timeline. How things change. Meanwhile in the massive golden ship of Uranus. I wonder how Luffy is doing. Hancock had left the petrified Elder Star to wander off as she was worried for her lover. Tisk to think that this would be it. Crocodile dropped the mummified body of the Elder Star. There was no doubt in my mind. Arlong placed his saw shark blade over his shoulder. HN. Mihawk had cut his opponent cleanly in half, no more returning for the Elder Star. It was a clean sweep. None of the puppet heads of the world government survived the onslaught of the strongest members of the Straw Hat Pirates. This is the extent of the Elder Stars. The Mochi user said as he looked down on the enemy that he defeated. Then a call came in the pockets of Katakuri. Yes, it's done. Called in really, good. The red line was no more. And the entire world is feeling it as the tides and the marine life begin to mix together, causing several storms and unnatural disasters to occur at one time. No more red line. No more grand line. No more new world. It was only one world. It was only the entire world, made into one piece, all together, as it should be. Now there was only one important battle left to determine the future. It was good and well that his pawns were defeated. But no one else can defeat the big bad, no one but Luffy. Straw Hat Luffy vs Uranus. Luffy had one thing in mind, and it was the bastard who caused years of suffering and pain. I'm gonna be the hands to put an end to your tyranny. Luffy dashed forward, with unleashing a flurry or thread-like objects, similar to that of Doflamingo. Being experienced against such attacks, Luffy deflected them with Enma, using his entire body to absorb the attacks by covering himself in haki. Just as he got close enough to strike, barely moved, swiping his hands to the side. This action caused a strong gust of wind to manifest in thin air, pushing Luffy to the side. He would have slammed against the hard golden walls, but Enma absorbed the impact by expanding. A small dent on the golden wall was created. Alright. Luffy imbued some force into his second attempt of a mad dash, bouncing off the golden wall with his rubber abilities. With Enma in his hands, Luffy unleashed a barrage of bow strikes, attempting to pierce the god. Yet again, was ahead of Luffy, manifesting an impenetrable barrier that could not be pierced. It was an ability similar to Bartolomeo. Luffy could only grit his teeth as he continued his onslaught, to no avail of course. All your effort, and yet you can't even reach me. How futile my joy. His voice echoed in a cold manner, almost chilling to the bone. But Luffy had no time to ponder in such a trivial manner. I'm gonna be the one to kill you, he exclaimed with such ferocity that his following strike with Enma was enough to cause a crack on the barrier. Foolish boy. Erected a diamond pillar along with a golden boulder. He then attempted to smash Luffy in the middle of the two rare materials. Not being one to surrender so easily, Luffy brought Enma in the middle, stopping the two rare materials from crushing him. The traitorous monkey is a distraction. We do not need my joy. Brought his arms up, pushing Luffy away from his trusted staff. It was then that two light particles slapped on either side of the rare materials, crushing the staff to pieces. No, Luffy exclaimed, reaching out using his rubber power, but it was too late. Enma was crushed into unrecognizable pieces. Enma. Tears welled up his eyes as he witnessed his friend and brother in arms dissipate in thin air. Thank you for giving me purpose once more, Luffy, was the last thing Enma communicated with Luffy before evaporating into nothing. As you see, my boy, you are nothing compared to me. Had not changed expression in the entire battle, for he had been toying with Luffy for the entire time. But Luffy was not a man to give up, not after all the people in the universe relied heavily for his victory. Luffy was slow to get up, his eyes were hidden under his bangs as his hat had been blown to his back. He curled up his fist as his body began to be covered by jet black thick armament haki. Defiance. Raised his arms, fire emitted from them as they rushed towards Luffy. Though instead of dodging it, Luffy attacked the flames straight on. He let out a loud scream as the pain was agonizing, yet he could not let up. Fuck you, Luffy yelled on the top of his lungs. He used all the force he could muster in his fist as they once again collided with the invisible barrier. The force of the impact caused crackles to erupt in the air, and finally, Luffy was through the tough barrier. But at what cause? He lost Enma, used most of his power, and only to get mere inches from the god. History is repeating itself, my joy. Stood over Luffy, looking down on his defeated form. Not yet. Seems like a second wind entered Luffy and he got up quickly, switching into his second gear and unleashing a powerful uppercut. The force was so great that Luffy embedded his foot on the ground to give power to the uppercut. Luffy then switched to his third gear. Despite the power behind his punch, remained unmoving, almost like the punch meant nothing to him. So in Luffy's third gear, Luffy unleashed a barrage of Kong rifles, causing enough damage to make move his head to the direction from the punches, but not enough to make him move. Still not good enough. So Luffy switched to gear 4th, unleashing a vector punch from different angles that even could not possibly follow. But he did, for the god of the heavens, Uranus, followed every single thing that Luffy did and took them, not moving from his spot. Is that all? Then grabbed Luffy by the throat with such ferocious tenacity that he was sure his neck would snap. Yet again, continued to toy with him, using his free hand to imbue quakes into his punch, slamming it against the core of Luffy. Gah! Luffy spat up some blood from the impact, then tossed him in the air, Darkness swallowed his entire being and Luffy was transported to a different location. One where he was surrounded by familiar faces. "Where am I?" Luffy said out loud, only for his voice to echo into nothing. "Die by the hands of your friends, my joy. Then the vicious cycle shall persist. A new void century will arise from your continued betrayal." Im's voice trailed off in the emptiness. He sent Luffy to a dimension within the darkness of the Yami Yami no Mi. Then Im also implemented the Cage no Mi to animate the corpse of some corpse on the battlefield. Now to complete the mind games, Im also implemented the illusion fruit, putting the faces of Luffy's fallen comrade on the zombie army. Luffy was now surrounded by people he cared for: Garp, Crocus, Blueno, Gladius, Zeph. "You let me die, boy," said the illusion of Garp, looking menacingly down at Luffy. I'm sorry, Grandpa." Crocus and Blueno brought him on his feet, with Garp preparing a punch to the face of Luffy. "You failed your own family." Garp unleashed a powerful flurry of punches at Luffy, causing more blood to come out of his body. After the flurry was done, Luffy's head hung down. He seemed to have been defeated. Though Luffy began to laugh, instead of feeling pain, he laughed. "Why do you laugh, boy?" Garp went in for another punch, but Luffy dragged Blueno to block the strike. Then he pulled Crocus as well and tossed him towards Garp. "These punches are nothing." Luffy then looked up and sent a deadly glare towards the imposters. Im thought that he had finally rid himself of his biggest failure. His love for Joy Boy was unparalleled, his defiance, enraging. Yet he had finally dispensed of this century's reincarnation of Joy Boy, or so he thought. From the portal to the darkness, emerged the man he thought he destroyed. Luffy was once again a thorn on his side and Im was livid. "Ah!" exclaimed Luffy as he brought his fight forward once more, his strikes much heavier than the last. "What is this?" Im had thought he was victorious, and yet here he was, back again. What more is that Luffy managed to make Im take a step back to block the strike. No longer can he claim that he was unfazed. Luffy continued his onslaught, not letting Im recover. But the god had the power of the world in his hands. He brought his arms to the heavens, pulling a meteor from the sky. The massive object made its rapid descent to where Luffy stood, but it never arrived. For outside, a giant stream of water emitted from the ocean, stopping the meteor of its descent. No longer was Poseidon going to sit idly by for her brother's selfish reason, for Poseidon. No Princess Shirahoshi interfered in his action. No longer was she going to let him torment humanity. Luffy smirked at Shirahoshi's action. A visible pain could be seen at Im, who gave part of him to make Poseidon. Then another betrayal finally arrived at the body of Im. For Uranus had destroyed his red line, using the massive island-destroying ship to destroy the wall that divided the sea from one another. He was much weaker than before, and Luffy took full advantage of it. He prepared his fist, imbuing it with all the years of pain and suffering that Im had caused. Memories of his death by the hands of Kaido, a second chance by Lady Toki. Reuniting with his brothers, Ace and Sabo. Gathering a crew of misfits with Mihawk, Arlong, Brulane eventual Grand Armada. He fell in love with Hancock. He stood toe-to-toe with Whitebeard, Edward Newgate. He killed Big Mom, Charlotte Lin Lin. He subdued the beast, Kaido. And he allied with red-haired Shanks. His fist was imbued with all the memories and experiences of his past. The pain, the suffering, the happiness and the love. He once more punched the heart of the god. This time, the punch would not be deflected, absorbed. This time the punch was a clean hit. "What?" Im could only muster a few words, unable to accept that a clean hit had landed at him. But the punch was much more powerful than the last, for this punch went straight to his heart. Before Im's vision could disappear, the god of the sky, Uranus looked upon Joy Boy for the last time. Luffy had punched straight through the chest of Im, his heart bursting at impact. Uranus grabbed the face of his Joy for the last time before finally collapsing with a loud thud. Luffy had slain a god. Luffy had beaten Im. "Monkey D. Luffy has killed Im," exclaimed Morgans, who had been watching the exchange with great interest, writing every single thing that occurred in the fight. He projected his voice for the entire battlefield to hear. The war was over. At the end of the new era, 2,453 Marines were killed. 5,432 pirates died fighting for Luffy. After his victory against the god hidden in the world government, Luffy stood over the highest point of Im's ship, looking down on all the eager people for his statement. Pirates, Marines, Cipher Pole, world government. It did not matter which faction you were part of. The new era was upon everyone. Luffy gathered himself, reminiscing on the things he went through on this second life. He would never have experienced this reality if Lady Toki never sacrificed herself for his survival. He could claim to be the new emperor, but that wasn't his style. He didn't want to rule the world, he wanted freedom. But people waited for his statement. The whole world required structure, and he wasn't the man for the job. His voice carried a heavy weight, as everything he was going to say would go down in the new history of the world. I am Monkey D. Luffy. He looked around, catching the eyes of his commanders, comrades, lovers, and friends. Most of them had tears in their eyes as the dream of ultimate freedom was finally upon them. I am a pirate, and nothing will ever change that. Around the world, people feared that Luffy would call for the end of the world government. But the world needs structure in order to function, so while I call for the end of the holy land of Marihoa, I will not call for the end of the I understand that piracy is viewed as a bunch of pillagers and rapists. That is not what I want. Luffy then looked at Marine Fleet Admiral Sengoku, whose justice was fair. Marine Fleet Admiral will assume command as the sole head of the Marine Division, for when there is good, there is evil. Sengoku took a bow at Luffy, but Luffy dismissed it with a wave. I do not want your admiration. I want the entire world to make their own destiny rather than to fall in line with what people want you to be. I want people to dream and grow from your dream. There is no more world government composed of just kings and queens by birthright. I would like democracy where the people elect who they want to represent them. He looked around once more, people nodding at his statement. As for me, while I am not much of a politician, but I want to continue to be free. So this unreachable island known as Laugh-Tale will be my only demand. I want this island for my own. Nobody would protest against his minor request. For all he's done for their world, it was really nothing compared to what he could actually demand. With the eradication of the Red Line, I ask you all, please get along with one another. No matter the race, your status, every single one of you are living, breathing, beings of this world. It might be due to the heavy fatigue, but his words were never lost to the citizens of the world. With his last words, he simply nodded his head and fell face first, exhausted from his exchange with I Am. His first commander and friend, Katakuri, was first to his side, picking him up. This is Straw Hat territory now, commanded Hancock. Please kindly go on your way. If anyone still wants to challenge this, we are still ready to go. Enel, Lucci, Crocodile, and Magellan, all the rest of the capable fighters of the crew. Who can stand against the greatest empire in the entire world? And yet he did not want to be known as an empire, just a normal country with their own set of government and rules. The Staffats dropped their arms, and so did the Marines. It was a standoff for some time, but people finally began to filter out. The surviving ships that did not soukbed to battle were used to transport the people present for the monumental war. Then eventually, there was no one left. No one but those loyal to Straw Hat Luffy. It took another week before their fearless captain woke up. In the meantime, the Straw Hat Grand Armada began to build a kingdom fit for someone like Luffy. Supplies came from different corners of the sea, they never lacked material. Luffy sat up quickly, his head continued to throb violently as he had been in a coma for a week. Where am I? He grabbed his head, but luckily, someone was there to answer all his questions. Luffy, my darling. Hancock immediately ran to his side, embracing him in a loving embrace. Hancock, what happened? He looked around in confusion. He was in a massive room, with the bed being huge. At the time, only Hancock was by his side, though he can only assume that the side of the bed was for all his queens. You won, Luffy. You freed the world of I Am and his terrible influence. Oh, is that so? Luffy sounded relieved, but he was still concerned. Tell me more. Well, when you had Dr. Vegapunk destroy the Red Line, a huge tectonic shift occurred within the world. Hancock assisted Luffy in standing. The Red Line no longer divided the four seas, and the current generated by the Grand Line was no more. Now the four seas can freely travel towards one another. Even the Sea Kings are no longer a problem as Poseidon commanded the Sea Kings to not attack the surface dwellers. So it's true then, I am created the red line to divide the seas. What a despicable entity. Luffy then continued to look around, finding that his intentions were fulfilled by his crew. The land of Laugh-Tale was no longer the final island of the Grand Line. It was now part of the larger networks of islands in the brand new world. Luffy joined Hancock in walking through the streets of his new land. People waved at him and gave him a warm welcome. In front of the group was none other than his trusty commanders, all of which had been eagerly waiting for his revival. "Captain, it's been some time." Katakuri, his most trusted comrade along with Mihawk were there to greet him, the both of which took turns embracing him. "I don't know why but I feel that you mean to say goodbye?" Luffy had a gut feeling, sensing it from every one of his commanders, except for his queens. 10 years later. "Come here Luffy, you have become so strong as the time progresses." A tall yet gentle man raised his son to his shoulder, tossing him and playing with him. "I have turned 8 this year father, what did you expect?" the son teased as he was being tossed by his father. Katakuri, "Luffy, dinner is ready, stop playing, we have guests." Sandersonia, the sister of Boa Hancock, called for the duo to the dining hall. It has been 10 years since the world has been freed from the grasp of the god, I am, and life has become normal. People were beginning to move away from the age of piracy and have now begun to experiment and grow into inventors, industrializing the world. "Dad, Mom, look, Uncle Frankie is on TV." Luffy ran to the TV and turned up the volume. The primary architect to the Industrial Revolution of the New World was none other than Cyborg Frankie, a friend of Katakuri. "Wow, he seems to have developed a new technology. Aeroplane. Seems crazy but I've seen crazier things," Katakuri said, continuing to walk past the TV set and carrying his son. "Come now son, we have guests." Going through a set of double doors, a large group of people were around a massive table. "Attention, the head of the family has arrived. Charlotte Katakuri, Charlotte Boa Sandersonia, and the heir of the Charlotte family, Charlotte Luffy." The crowd fell into silence acknowledging the arrival of the head of the family. The young lord immediately hid his head onto his father's shoulder, but his father whispered to him, "If you are to honor your namesake Luffy, you must be brave in front of your people." To this the young lord turned to face the crowd. The group was known as the Charlotte family. Oven, Cracker, Smoothie, Raisin, and so on were all present. Vinsmoke Sanji along with Vinsmoke Pudding were also there. Their daughter, the young Vinsmoke Sora, was also present. She was but a little baby, recently born to the beautiful couple. The Charlotte family had become more open, no longer exercising arranged marriage. So therefore anyone of the family could marry someone they chose. For Brule, it was always Arlong and therefore, she currently RS Queen of the land. For Chiffon, she continues to love her husband, Capone Beeg, along with their son, Pez, as they bow when Katakuri lays eyes on them. "My family, please, none of such formalities. We are all here to celebrate my son's 8th birthday. So we shall celebrate as this occasion calls for," Katakuri called and the group began to cheer. Unfortunately not everyone could make the special occasion. Of course everyone was busy doing their own thing. "Just feel the waves people, you don't want to be tense. Be fluid." The instructor of the surfing class was demonstrating proper form. "Jinbei, if I fall in the water you have to catch me." Funny enough, Edward Newgate was on top of a massive surfboard, practicing proper form in dry land. He always wanted to learn, now he finally worked up courage to do so. "I got you Newgate." The red-haired man was already in the water, surfing the highest wave that the lagoon could produce. "Screw you red hair." The two became close friends and to the surprise of many, even the dragon began hanging out with them. "Worororo, a simple wave will not stop me." Kaido, the former emperor of the sea, turned ally, ran to the water thinking he got it, but instead as soon as he touched the water, he fell flat on his face. The curse of the sea still remained. "Gurarara, you idiot Kaido. Wait for the instructor to guide us to the water." In the heart of the land formerly known as Thriller Bark, Gecko Moria panted heavily, as his scissor blades have been knocked out of his hands. Around him were Shiki, who had been sitting against a tree, battered and bruised from defeat. Vista, who continued to stand, but barely, and Daz Bones, who continued to lay flat on his back. "You may move on to the next test," said Moria with a smile on his face, It has been 10 years since the 10 swords have been formed, an organization of the best swordsmen in the world, acting as stepping stones for the next age of swordsmen to challenge to earn a place. Do I get to face him? Asked the eager young swordsman. His hair a vibrant green color, similar to his father, his tenacity similar to his mother. Before you face your father young Kushiro, you must first challenge Cavendish, your mother Rorinoa Kushina, and last Dracule Mahawk, the number 2 ranked swordsman. Then you may challenge your father. Bring it on, said Rorinoa Kushiro with a smirk over his face. He was after his father's title, and there was nothing stopping him from reaching it. Young ones these days are insane, aren't they? Commented Shiki the lion. They are the future of this generation. I'm glad I was able to help pave his path, replied Vista with a smile over his face. You know, it's been a while since you visited us. Goldie Ace took a swig of his drink, pointing at the man before him. Sabo had an apologetic look about him, scratching the back of his head. Well, me and Koala have been busy, she is expecting again. Sabo put the blame on his wife, while his son, Dragon and daughter, Luffy played with Roger, the son of Ace and Asuka, and Rouge, their daughter. I only kid Sabo, we've just missed you. Ace embraced his brother and returned to his seat. What news then? Sabo gratefully accepted the tea created by Asuka, the former Marine officer. As hard as they tried, they could not ignore their feelings for one another any longer. So as soon as the war ended, Ace looked for Asuka and kissed her, admitting that he had cared about her for a long time. He just could not act on the feelings in fear that she would be executed for having a relationship with a pirate. Asuka called him stupid and kissed him some more. You know, these days, nothing really exciting ever happens. Did you know that Robin opened up a Grand Line University and she is seeking some help for instructors? Ace leaned back on his chair, balancing it on one stool. I accepted a post as the physical education teacher. I recommended you for history instructor. Sabo began to ponder. He'll take it, Koala said with enthusiasm. With barely any bounty hunting jobs, this will be a perfectly safe and secure job. Well, the missus spoke. When do I begin? On the island formerly known as Laughtale, a university had been erected to educate the children of the world. Its initial opening saw thousands of children attend, and talks of opening different branches in different islands has begun. In the entranceway of a particular classroom, along its door was a golden plate with the name of Dr. Tony Chopper. The stomach is filled with millions upon millions of microorganisms. They are used to break down, not absorb, the food which you ingested. It is which part of the body that begins absorption of these important nutrients? Chopper was in his human form, towering over his chalkboard, looking around the classroom for anyone to answer his question. He noticed a raven-haired young lady with enthusiasm to learn. Yes, Olivia? Olivia, the daughter of Robin and Luffy. One of his many children, as he had a fruitful harem. The small intestine absorbs the nutrients starting from the duodenum, then the jejunum, and finally to the ileum right before the large intestine. Olivia answered, causing Chopper to clap. Excellent, Olivia. Looks like we have a guest. Chopper had his eyes fixated at the entranceway of the classroom. With it being an auditorium-style room to accommodate for a large class, the entranceway was up a flight of stairs, where Robin, the headmistress of Grand Line University, was present. Headmistress, to what do we owe this pleasure? Dr. Chopper, children, I wish to pull my daughter aside for a moment, if that is okay? Sure, go ahead. With this, Olivia went up to meet her mother. Hi, mother. Olivia embraces her mother. What's going on? I just wanted to check up on you. Being the second eldest of the monkey family, you must become an example to your siblings. Yes, mother. I will do my best. I know, dear. Robin gave her daughter a kiss on the cheeks before ushering her to return to class. I love you, Olivia. Love you too, mother. A single tear falling in Robin's eye. She was so proud of her child, her feelings were overwhelming at this moment. Miss Robin, is everything okay? A young, black-haired young man was running to his next class, stopping as he noticed the tears falling from her eyes. Oh, Garp, everything is well. Run along now, you must make it to your next class. Garp, the son of Luffy and Hancock, the eldest of the monkey family. Garp weighed up. An orange-haired young man with freckles along his face chased after the young man. Careful, LJ. Robin said, laughing at the young men and their attics. LJ, or Luffy Jr., was the son of Nami and Luffy, the third eldest of the family. Sorry, Miss Robin, I mean headmistress. LJ rushed after Garp and the two headed to their next class. See you at dinner, Robin called out. She checked her watch and smiled, only a few more hours. Ah, the monkey siblings. Please take a seat. Swiftly now. Brooke, the music instructor of the university, had done it all. He became a rock star in the past 10 years, finally settling down as an instructor in the Grand Line University. LJ took a seat behind the drums while Garp took the electric guitar. Psst, Garp. Mary is looking at you. LJ whispered from beside him. It's no secret that the young ones had a crush with one another. Shut up, LJ. Garp threw his pick at LJ, causing the young man to throw his drumstick at him. This commotion caused the two young boys to wrestle. Brooke had to intervene quickly before it got out of hand. Though Garp looked toward the direction of Mary, and she was giggling. Nice. Mary was the daughter of Usopp and Kaya, naming their daughter after the late caretaker of Kaya when she was sickly. Speaking of which, the duo had returned to Syrup Village, with Usopp and Banchina joining them. They have created an elite marksman class in the island, providing the best training for those aspiring to be marksmen. In Sabaody Archipelago resides the largest financial district of the world. Who else but Nami and her business partner, Guild Tessero. Looks like the Moon Project is going to launch in a few days. Nami took a sip of her coffee as she looked through her mechanic screen, created by Frankie the master inventor. Thanks to the rise in space interest, investors have been clamoring for a chance to get into the market. Guild checked his logs, making sure that his numbers are balanced. Listen, Guild, clean up here, I have dinner to catch. Nami then tossed a handbag over her head. But Nami, Guild protested, but his boss was long gone. Of course. He then went to the nearest Den Den Mushi, calling his own wife. Bakura, care to join me for dinner? If Nami was going to play hooky, what's one night? Moving on, the savior himself, the unofficial king of the world, Monkey D. Luffy, currently sat on the edge of the mountain, his queen, Boa Hancock. He caressed her hair as they overlooked their land, relaxing at the cool breeze that went past them. We have another hour before the children begin heading home, Hancock said as she took a deep sigh, enjoying the moment with her husband. To think that I would have a family of my own, can you believe that? Luffy remembered his past, how he had to start over to get to where he was now. His friends were successful in their own rights, his harem filled with beautiful queens and mother of his children's. You are a wonderful man and you have done nothing but care for every single one of us, treating us with the respect we deserve. There is no life I would like to live without you in it, my love. Thank you for that, Hancock. He then exchanged a long passionate kiss with his love, breaking it only for a moment to stare into her eyes. We should go, everyone will be waiting for us. Of course, she said and gave him another kiss on the cheek. Let's go. She extended her hands inviting Luffy to join her. He took it and the two made their way down the mountain, returning to their home.